Very much, Mr. President Tshisekedi, for granting me the opportunity for this interview. It's a pleasure for me to be sitting with you here in Kinshasa. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Madam. We are also proud of you and we are honored to be interviewed by the only African journalist in the White House. You're welcome to Kinshasa. You along with your delegation.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. So to begin, I would like to hear from you. How would you describe the current situation in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Mr. President?
Yeah, this is an unjust situation as it's imposed to us. We are victims. We have started so many sites in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The first one was the one which consists of building peace. I visited all the 9 neighboring countries to the DRC. I met my counterparts to talk about the necessity of developing common development program for the benefit of our populations. The other project was the one consists of rebuilding our country with infrastructures, and the other one was speaking to the social aspects. We launched free education program, and we are working on the universal health coverage so that we can improve access to health care for all Congolese citizens. And while we were working on all that, we were victim of the unjust war that's hiding looting intentions, the intentions to loot our mineral and agricultural resources. This is unfortunately the unjust situation that we are experiencing.
You mentioned a few times injustice and victim. What would you like the international community to better understand about this conflict? Something that maybe it's often overlooked or misunderstood.
Well, the international community should understand that this started from the genocide from Rwanda in 1994. Back then, the DRC was called Zaire, and the Zaire president, late Mobutu, was invited to open the borders to receive the Rwandan refugees that were running away from genocide. But unfortunately, among those victims, there was among them genocide causes, doers, and we would have done it otherwise in order to control those genocide doers. But we gave to Rwandan army the authority to enter the Congolese territory and to sort that issue. And from that time on, the crisis started in the DRC, and the international community have forsaken us. And we are victims, and we have millions of victims recorded since then. Now, we believe that the international community ought to take side with us and help us sort this situation. That's why I would like to hereby thank the Trump administration for the efforts they are doing, and I'm even convinced that this will be successful. And I really want to say that finally the international community, through the United States taking the lead, have understood that they needed to help the DRC people.
Let's then talk about this upcoming peace deal signing ceremony. What is this peace deal about? Can you explain?
Well, there is nothing magic in this agreement. As I just said, it's all about the awareness within the U.S. administration, the awareness on the conflicts that exist for about 30 years and which has caused millions of victims. So, just like any other initiative, it consists of ending the war and achieving the unconditional withdrawal of all the armed groups and all. In addition to that, we also have to come to a solution to this war, which is basically an economic war. And just to give you background, I just said it. This is something I've tried to do when I took office in 2019. I went and paid visit to neighboring countries. And back then, there was Rwanda and Uganda and Burundi that were the most concerned, because back then, Burundi also joined Uganda and Rwanda against the DRC in order to suggest this deal between us and see how we could be able to move towards a cooperation based upon economic exchanges instead of fighting, having these tensions, useless tensions that would have consequences on the stability of the region. Unfortunately, in 2022, Rwanda went on war against us, and Uganda understood that we are now building good relationship with President Museveni, and Burundi, thanks to President Ndayishimiye, they have also considerably improved their relation with the DRC. They are now a sister country. Now we hope that with the mediation of the U.S. administration, this peace will come true.
Why do you think President Trump is so interesting to bring peace to DRC? Why he's working so hard to bring peace to DRC, in your point of view?
D'abord parce qu'il l'a annoncé.
First and foremost, because he announced it.
Ensuite, parce que
and then,
President Trump
represents the first world power. The U.S. are actually the leaders, and everybody knows the influence of the U.S. I was talking about the international community, and I believe that the United States has some responsibility in what's happened in the region. This might not be to mean that they are guilty, but they have the responsibility, which is that they trusted a regime, Rwandan regime, that was involved in the genocide, and as they were trying to correct the mistakes they made, they even caused other mistakes and other crises in the DRC. And I think this awareness from the U.S. administration would change the tide.
As you know, Mr. President Trump eagerly desired to bring peace to DRC, as he personally told me many times. And he put together this specific team that has been working really hard to push this deal to really happen. And he not only wants to bring peace to DRC, he also wants to end the war between Russia and Ukraine. He's looking the situation in the Middle East. And my question for you, Mr. President, when we see peace finally reach DRC, are you considering to be the first African president to nominate President Trump for a Nobel Peace Prize? And just did it, by the way.
Quand est-ce qu'elle interviendra? Ça, c'est Dieu seul qui sait.
When would we achieve peace? God alone knows. I owe something to President Trump. I acknowledge that he really considered this issue personally, and we really owe acknowledgement for this. He appointed a very ineffective team led by Dr. Massad Boulos. They are working with, in collaboration with our friends from Qatari, and also with the presence of the African Union, led by President Foreign Yassine Bey. Well, this is something that's progressing very well, and now we are at the point of the principal agreement. A set of principles have been selected for the agreement, and if everything goes well, by the end of next week, both of our foreign ministers from Congo and Rwanda would meet in the United States to sign more than a principal agreement, and then we will come to endorse around President Trump in the United States, but I don't know when that would take place. It will depend upon both the progress of the events on the ground, but also it will depend on the U.S. agenda. As we know that the U.S. are involved in so many issues. You talked about the Middle East, and you talked about the war between Russia and Ukraine, and we also have the conflict between Rwanda and the DRC. So it will depend on those, but I think this might take place around mid-July. But then after that, I believe if they manage to achieve this, to end an unjust conflict that has caused thousands and hundreds of thousands were dead. And some people would say that this war has caused more dead than the Second World War. And I think if President Trump, thanks to mediation, managed to definitely end this war, he would really deserve this Nobel Prize. I would go the first to vote for him.
And Mr. President, as we know, the narrative about the Democratic Republic of the Congo around the world is not good. Many people see this country as a very corrupted country and with problems with bad governance. When this peace deal is finally reached, are you planning to lead a very deep work combating corruption in this country?
No, not at all. Let's talk about this issue on corruption. Generally, the DRC is stigmatized. Of course, corruption exists everywhere in the world. Even in democratic countries everywhere here, you would hear about corruption cases. So this is not something that is very specific to the DRC alone. And then you have to know that there are multiple items that are to be considered in our country when you talk about this corruption. The first thing is behavior. During all these recent years, we have considered issues with behaviors. Consequently, corruption is very key and very obvious in Africa, Congolese people. And then we also have this legal system of the country, which should see to sorting this issue. And we also have the social conditions, meaning the salaries that are making it difficult for other people to eat ends to mouth. And this is something that we have started working on since I took office in 2019. We started fighting against that. I have established multiple mindset change mechanisms, and there is a unit that's focused on that, and there is another one that's fighting against corruption via sensitization and denunciation. I started reforms, and today I think it's not perfect yet, but still we are working on it.
Have you seen progress?
Yes, of course, we've recorded progress. I will mention that. The third element is the revenues. When I came to power, the budget of the DRC was around $1 billion, and today we have tripled this amount, and today we are able to collect that thanks to the mechanisms that we have established. We have collected more revenues, and we are also going to mobilize our efforts as we have to diversify our economy